Hey friends, this is Rachel, the Water Fire Mama. This video is for anyone who is in crisis mode because of a life-changing event or long-term special needs caregiving. You might be dealing with a lot of questions and feeling like God is far away. Today we're going to talk about leaning on God's promises that you already know, finding your new normal, and a couple of simple spiritual practices to help you tread water until your feet can touch the bottom again. Welcome back. When the bottom drops out of our world, even as Christians, maybe especially because we're Christians, we often find that big questions get pushed to the foreground. How could this happen? Doesn't God see what's going on here? Is God punishing me? Let me stop you right there and tell you that God isn't punishing you with a sick loved one for a sin you may or may not even be aware of. God does not punish or bless us according to our behavior, but His character. All throughout Scripture, God's loving and compassionate character is revealed. It may be really hard to recognize it right now, but when the bottom drops out, it's not so much a time to try and answer these big theological questions as it is to lean into what you already know. You might be new to faith or well established in your faith, but drawing a blank on this point. I love this collection of God's promises from JenniferRothschild.com. God says He will help you. He'll never leave you. He gives you strength. He loves you. He has plans to give you a hopeful future. He is faithful. He doesn't change so you aren't consumed. He is with you. He will give you treasures hidden in secret places. He gives you rest. It may be hard to believe some of these things right now. God is big enough to handle your doubts and questions. In the dark hospital days when our son Luke was younger, more than a few times I told God that I didn't think much of this plan of His, and I asked Him to show me that He still loved me in 100 different small ways and sometimes very mighty ways that I'll tell you about sometime. He affirmed these promises. God works through people and circumstances to continually show His people that He's there and He loves us. Keep your eyes open for it and you will see it. It's not about moving on or expecting that you'll leave this pain behind. Many of us water fire walkers have come to accept that the diagnosis won't change. And while some things might get easier as we learn more, we're on this journey for the long haul. We have to carry our scars with us as we walk toward God in the hope that He will redeem our hurts in this life or the next. So for the time being, it's about finding your new normal. We're not in a sprint, we're in a marathon. Now, I've never run an actual marathon, not even close, but with just a little bit of research, I found that a lot of marathon races set up aid stations about every mile to give the runners water, food, first aid, and encouragement. If marathon runners need to be refreshed so frequently, those of us running the marathon of high-impact caregiving do too. Think about daily and weekly routines that you need to put in place so that your body, mind, and emotions can get the regular refreshment that you need. My son Luke has never kept the same sleep schedule 2 consecutive days in his life. And when my youngest son Sam was a baby, he was a super early riser. Needless to say, getting enough sleep at our house has always been a struggle. During that season, with a baby and a 4-year-old, my husband David and I negotiated that he would get up with the kids at whatever hour on Friday mornings to let me sleep in, so I could always count on a day to catch up on my rest. That system has worked well for us, and we still use it in this season. Now, this particular practice might not work for you for whatever reason, but I encourage you to carve out time and fashion practices to take care of your physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. Take turns with your spouse to go off duty. Use a portion of the time the kids are at school to do something that fills your cup. Trade days off with another special needs parent. Connect with a church that provides respite events. Mindfully use that hour before the rest of the house gets up in the morning or after they go to bed at night. Sit outside for a bit during your lunch break, nap time, or screen time. The temptation is to use those moments for catching up on work or chores or to mindlessly binge a show or scroll social media. I challenge you to do something mindful that is going to refuel you mentally and emotionally. My favorite things to do that recharge my battery are going for a walk in nature, reading a book with a cup of coffee on my deck, and sharing a meal with friends. But figure out what activities are the most impactful for you and prioritize those as much as you can. Romans 8 says that the Spirit helps us in our weakness. The Spirit doesn't do it for us, but helps us by translating our prayers. The Spirit takes whatever we offer and works with it. Jesus fed 5,000 people with a tiny offering of a bit of bread and some fish. Whatever you bring to the table is enough. I want to tell you about a couple of simple practices to fall back on while you're waiting for the ground to solidify beneath your feet again. The first one is simple prayer. Tell God about one thing that's causing you pain or stress and one thing that you're thankful for. Some days it's really hard to find something to be grateful for, so it's okay for that one thing to be really basic, like, I'm thankful I had enough to eat today, or I'm grateful that I felt the sunshine on my face. The other is simple scripture reading. Take a few verses of a psalm, any psalm, and read it mindfully. This isn't supposed to be an in-depth study, but the idea is to read these verses devotionally. Try to take one thought from those verses and apply it to your life today. For example, if you're looking at Psalm 23, you might pray from verse 3, God, refresh my soul today. Guide me along the right path so I can please you. Then look for things throughout the day that God might be using to refresh your soul. The next day, read a few different verses from the Psalms. You can take as long as you need to do this simple prayer and scripture reading, but it doesn't need to take you more than 5 minutes if you're short on time. If you want to be directed in a short devotional thought each day, I love using the book Jesus Calling by Sarah Young. This book was given to me by another pastor's wife during the dark hospital days when Luke was an infant, and it brought me hope. Each day, it gives you a verse to focus on and a truth to think about. I especially like that it's written as if Jesus is speaking to the reader directly and privately, like opening my own tiny letter from God each day. The entries are short enough to not feel overwhelmed in doing it each day, but meaty enough to give you something to chew on throughout the day. In my next video, I'm going to show you a tool I discovered that I like to call my emotional rescue inhaler. I'll introduce you to the practice of breath prayer and how we can use it when our emotional and spiritual tanks are empty. Don't forget that I've left the link to get my free guide for caring for yourself in crisis in the description. Just fill out the contact form to get that sent to your inbox. Give this video a thumbs up if it's helped you, and click the subscribe button so you know each time I drop a new video. Remember, water fire walkers, our God goes before us and is our rear guard. He's going to carry us through these tough days. He's got you, and I'm here to help. I'll see you next time.